The giant ship docked at the Galactic Council station with a soft hiss. Dr. Jack Miller took a deep breath and checked his reflection one last time. Plain face, short brown hair, and simple blue eyes stared back at him. Nothing special, just a normal human. Yet here he was, about to become Earth's first scientific ambassador to the stars. Final approach complete, Dr. Miller, the ship's AI announced. The welcoming party awaits you. Jack nodded and straightened his lab coat. Earth had joined the galactic community just 3 years ago. Humans were still new, still finding their place among the stars. And now, it was his job to show what humans could do. The doors slid open. A wave of strange smells hit Jack's nose. Alien foods, alien bodies, alien plants. The welcoming hall was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Creatures of all shapes stood in groups, talking and laughing. Some had 4 arms, others had scales, and a few even floated above the ground. "Ah, the human has arrived," said a tall blue alien, walking forward. "I am Kren, your guide. Welcome to the Galactic Council station." Jack shook Kren's hand, or rather, the 3-fingered appendage Kren offered. "Thank you. I'm honored to be here." "Come," Kren said. "The welcome feast is about to begin." The council members are eager to meet Earth's new representative. They walked through the crowd. Jack felt eyes on him from all sides. Some looked curious, others seemed bored, but most just looked, pitying. The feast hall was even bigger than the welcoming area. A long table stretched across the room, with seats for at least 50 beings. At the head sat the oldest-looking aliens Jack had ever seen. Their skin was pale purple and seemed to glow slightly. Long white hair flowed down their backs. "The Vorn," Kren whispered. "The oldest living species in the council. They lead most scientific projects." Jack was guided to his seat, much smaller than the others, and clearly added recently. The table was already filled with council members eating, drinking, and talking loudly. "And then I told my great-great-grandchild, 'Why rush? You have 400 years ahead of you.'" A green reptilian alien laughed, slapping the table. "Only 400?" asked a floating orb-like creature. "My species typically lives 320 years, but my family line tends to reach 380. Jack quietly took his seat, listening. "That's nothing," said a Vorn at the head of the table. His voice was deep and seemed to echo slightly. "I am Trell, chief elder of the Vorn. I have lived 734 years already, and expect at least 200 more." The table went quiet with respect. Then someone noticed Jack. "Ah, the human. Tell us, human, what is your species' lifespan? We're all curious." The question came from a furry, 6-eyed being. All eyes turned to Jack. He cleared his throat. "Well, humans typically live between 70 and 90 years. Silence fell across the table. Then someone snorted. Another coughed. Soon, most of the table was trying not to laugh openly. "Less than a century," Trell said, his glowing eyes widening. "How unfortunate for your kind." "It must be so hard," said another alien with false sympathy. "To know your time is so short." "How do you accomplish anything?" asked another. "By the time you learn something useful, you're already dying." Jack felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression calm. "We manage," he said simply. "Well," Trell said, raising a glass, "to our new human friend, may your brief flicker of existence with us be productive." The aliens raised their glasses. Jack raised his too, but inside, something was burning. Not anger, exactly. Something more like determination. As the feast continued, Jack quietly took notes on his tablet. Not about the food or the conversation, but about something else entirely. He was noting down everything the aliens said about their biology, their cells, their lifespans. "Is that work you're doing already?" Kren asked, surprised. "The feast has barely begun." Jack smiled. "Just making some notes," he said. "Humans don't have much time to waste." Little did the laughing aliens know that this brief flicker of a human was about to change everything they thought they knew about life itself. 3 weeks passed since Jack's arrival at the Galactic Council station. He was given a small lab on the far end of the science wing, a closet compared to the vast spaces the alien scientists enjoyed. But Jack didn't complain. Small spaces were familiar to humans who grew up on a crowded planet. Jack sat in his 4th council meeting, trying not to show his frustration. The meeting had gone on for 6 hours already. The aliens took their time with everything. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion next week," suggested a tentacled alien named Morp. "No need to rush decisions that will affect the next 50 years. "Agreed," said Trell, the Vorn elder. "Time brings wisdom." Jack checked his watch. Another day wasted on talk with no action. On Earth, he would have completed 3 experiments by now. As the meeting ended, Jack approached Trell with his proposal. "Elder, I've developed a method that might improve crop yields on the outer colonies by 30%. If we could test it." "Ah, the human," Trell interrupted, not even looking at Jack's datapad. "Always in such a hurry. Science is not about quick results, Dr. Miller. The best discoveries take centuries of careful study." "But people are hungry now," Jack said. "This could help them within months." Trell patted Jack's shoulder with his 3-fingered hand. "This enthusiasm is charming. But perhaps leave the important work to species who will live long enough to see projects through to completion." 2 Vorn scientists nearby chuckled. Jack's face burned, but he said nothing. Later that day, Jack was eating alone in the dining hall when Kren, his blue-skinned guide, sat down beside him. "You seem troubled," Kren said. Jack poked at his food. "They won't even look at my work. They think because I won't live 900 years, my ideas don't matter." Kren nodded. "The Vorn have always been this way. They believe age equals wisdom." "On Earth, we say fresh eyes see clearer," Jack replied. Their conversation was interrupted when a group of Vorn scientists entered the hall. Trell was with them. They sat at the largest table, speaking loudly. "Can you believe the human wants to rush a farming project?" one said. "As if crops grown quickly could possibly be as good as those developed over proper timescales." "Humans," another said with a laugh. "They live their whole lives in a blink. No wonder they built a civilization that burns its own planet. No long-term thinking." Jack gripped his fork tightly. Kren looked uncomfortable. "You know," Trell said, loudly enough for Jack to hear, "I've been thinking about the human problem. Perhaps we should restrict their involvement in any project lasting longer than a human lifetime. It seems cruel to let them start what they'll never see finished." The other Vorn nodded in agreement. Jack stood up suddenly. "Excuse me," he said to Kren, and walked out, leaving his food half-eaten. Back in his tiny lab, Jack paced back and forth. Then he stopped and looked at his notes. Pages of observations about the aliens' biology, their cells, their aging processes. He had been collecting samples too. Shed skin, hair, even saliva from cups at meetings. "They think humans are too short-lived to matter," he muttered. "Too impatient to do real science." Jack sat down at his computer and began typing rapidly. He pulled up the human genome alongside his notes on alien biology. Something was forming in his mind. A crazy idea, but one that might work. Request: access to full genetic laboratory equipment. He typed into the station's request system. A message appeared. Purpose of request. Jack hesitated, then typed, "Cultural Exchange Project, to help aliens understand human biology better." It wasn't exactly a lie. If his idea worked, the aliens would definitely understand humans better, in ways they could never imagine. The system flashed. Request approved. Jack smiled for the first time in weeks. The Vorn thought in centuries. Humans thought in moments. And sometimes, moments were all you needed to change everything. Jack's new lab equipment arrived 3 days later. His small room now felt even smaller, packed with machines that hummed and blinked. The station manager, a four-armed alien named Plex, looked confused when he delivered the final piece. "This is a lot of equipment for a cultural exchange," Plex said. Jack smiled. "Humans are very thorough." "For beings with so little time," Plex replied with a smirk. As soon as Plex left, Jack locked the door and got to work. His collection of alien biological samples had grown. Hair from the Vorn, skin cells from the floating orb beings, saliva from the reptilians, all gathered from discarded items in meeting rooms and dining halls. Jack worked late into the night, examining the alien cells under powerful microscopes. He compared them to human cells, looking for differences and similarities. "Computer, display human telomere structure alongside Vorn telomere structure," Jack said. The screen lit up with two images side by side. Telomeres were the caps at the end of each strand of DNA that protected chromosomes. In humans, they got shorter each time a cell divided, eventually leading to aging and death. Jack leaned closer. "Interesting," he whispered. The Vorn telomeres were different. They had a special protein structure that prevented them from shortening. This was part of why they lived so long. "But that's not the whole story," Jack muttered, moving to another sample. Days turned into weeks. Jack barely left his lab. When he did attend council meetings, he sat quietly, letting the aliens believe he had accepted his place. Some even seemed to forget he was there. The terraforming project on Nexus 4 should begin in 50 years, Trell announced during one meeting. "We'll need to monitor progress for at least 3 centuries to ensure proper development." Another Vorn nodded. "A reasonable time frame." Jack said nothing, just made notes on his pad. The aliens thought he was taking notes about the meeting. They were wrong. Back in his lab, Jack's project was taking shape. He had discovered something remarkable. While alien species had evolved natural longevity, they had reached evolutionary dead ends. Their telomeres didn't shorten, but their cells had lost the ability to change and adapt quickly. Human cells, however, were different. They died faster, but they also regenerated and adapted faster. Humans hadn't reached their biological potential yet. They were still evolving. "That's our advantage," Jack said to himself. "We change." 4 months after arriving at the station, Jack made his breakthrough. By combining human stem cell technology with the protective protein structure from Vorn telomeres, he created something new, a therapy that could potentially extend human life by centuries while maintaining the adaptability of human cells. Jack stared at the simulation results on his screen. Success rate, 89%. "It could work," he whispered. It could actually work. But he needed to test it. Computer simulations weren't enough. He needed a living subject. Jack looked at his own hand. Then he looked at the syringe of golden liquid sitting on his lab table. The therapy was ready, but using it on himself was risky. It could kill him instead of extending his life. A knock on the door made him jump. "Dr. Miller." It was Kren's voice. "The council is asking why you've missed the last 3 general meetings. Tell them I'm busy with my cultural exchange project." Jack called back, not opening the door. "They're growing suspicious," Kren said. "Trell has asked what exactly you're working on." Jack was silent for a moment. Then he made his decision. "Tell them I'll present my findings at next week's meeting," he said. After Kren left, Jack picked up the syringe. He had 1 week to test his therapy. 1 week to see if humans could match the Vorn's lifespan boasts. 1 week to change everything. Jack rolled up his sleeve, found a vein, and pushed the needle in. The golden liquid disappeared into his bloodstream. "Now we wait," he said to the empty room. Jack woke up the next morning feeling strange. His body tingled all over. He checked his pulse, steady but faster than normal. Was the therapy working, or was he dying? He took a small sample of his blood and placed it under the microscope. What he saw made him gasp. His cells were changing. The telomeres were rebuilding themselves, becoming stronger, more like the Vorn's but with a difference. They still had the adaptability of human cells. "It's working," he whispered. "It's actually working." Over the next 3 days, Jack ran test after test on himself. His hair grew faster. A small cut on his hand healed in hours instead of days. His eyesight became sharper. His mind felt clearer, able to work longer without getting tired. On the 4th day, there was another knock on his door. "Dr. Miller." It was Kren again. "Are you well? No one has seen you in days." Jack opened the door. Kren's eyes widened. "You look different," Kren said. "I feel different," Jack replied with a smile. "Better. The council meeting is tomorrow. Trell is expecting your presentation on this cultural exchange project." Jack nodded. "I'll be ready." After Kren left, Jack knew he needed more proof than just himself. The council would never believe one example. He needed more test subjects. That evening, Jack sent a message to the human colony on the station. There were only 12 humans living there, most working as traders or technicians. His message was simple. Volunteers needed for important medical research. Must be human. Completely confidential. 5 humans responded. Jack met them in his lab and explained his discovery, showing them his test results. "This could extend human life by centuries," he said, "but I need more subjects to prove it works consistently." A woman named Rose, the oldest of the group at 65, spoke first. "I've lived most of my life already. I'll try it." One by one, they all agreed. Jack prepared 5 doses of the therapy and administered it to each volunteer. "Return tomorrow so I can check your progress," he told them. The next morning, all 5 returned. Each showed the same signs Jack had experienced: faster healing, improved senses, increased energy. Rose, who had walked with a slight limp before, now moved easily. "My arthritis is gone," she said in amazement. "I haven't felt this good in 30 years." Jack collected blood samples from everyone and analyzed them. The results were clear. The therapy worked on all of them, with only minor variations based on age and health. He prepared his presentation for the council meeting that afternoon. He would need to be careful about how much he revealed. The aliens might try to take his discovery if they understood its full potential. Just before the meeting, Jack received an urgent message from Earth. It was from the Human Space Agency, responding to his weekly reports that he had been sending secretly. "Breakthrough confirmed by our scientists. Proceed with caution. Reinforcements en route. Do not reveal full extent of discovery until diplomatic team arrives in 3 days." Jack smiled. Earth had his back. They understood what this meant for humanity. At the council meeting, Trell called Jack to present his cultural exchange findings. "I hope you've used your time wisely, Dr. Miller," Trell said with a condescending smile. "Though I understand if your brief human attention span has produced only modest results." Jack walked to the center of the room, where all the council members could see him. Rose and the other test subjects sat quietly in the back, as planned. "Thank you, Elder Trell," Jack said calmly. "Today I'd like to present something that might change how the council views human potential." He activated his presentation screen. The first slide showed a simple comparison of human and Vorn cells. "I've been studying why some species live longer than others," Jack began, "and I've made an interesting discovery about humans." Trell leaned forward, suddenly interested. "And what might that be?" Jack smiled. "We're just getting started. As you all know," Jack continued, "humans have short lives compared to most species in the council. We typically live less than a century." The council members nodded, some with small smiles of superiority. "But there's something interesting about human cells," Jack said, changing the screen to show a microscope image. "We die faster, yes, but we also heal faster. We adapt faster. We evolve faster." Trell shifted in his seat. "This is basic biology, Dr. Miller. Short-lived species always have faster cell division. That's why they burn out so quickly." "Exactly," Jack agreed. "But what if we could have both? Fast adaptation and long life?" A murmur went through the room. Jack nodded to Rose and the other test subjects at the back of the room. They stood up and walked forward. "This is Rose," Jack said. "She's 65 years old, about 2/3 through a typical human lifespan." Rose stepped onto the platform beside Jack. She looked healthy, her eyes bright and clear. "1 week ago," Jack continued, "Rose had trouble walking due to joint pain. Her eyesight was failing. Her hair was gray. All normal signs of human aging." Jack displayed Rose's medical scans from before and after the treatment, side by side. "This is Rose now," he said. "Her cellular age has reversed by approximately 20 years. Her telomeres, the parts of our DNA that control aging, have reformed using a new pattern I discovered." The room erupted in disbelief. Trell stood up, his face showing shock for the first time since Jack had met him. "Impossible," Trell said. "No species can reverse aging. It defies biological law." "Not reverse," Jack corrected. "Transform. I studied the Vorn cellular structure alongside human stem cells. Your species lives long because your cells are stable. Ours die because they change too fast. I found a middle path." Jack displayed more data on the screen. The therapy results for all 6 test subjects, including himself. "Based on these results," Jack said calmly, "this therapy could extend human lifespan to match or exceed that of the Vorn. Perhaps 800 to 1,000 years. And unlike the Vorn, we would keep our ability to adapt and heal quickly." The council chamber exploded into chaos. Some aliens jumped to their feet, shouting questions. Others sat frozen in shock. One small green alien fainted. Trill's voice rose above the noise. "Silence," he commanded. When quiet returned, he faced Jack with cold eyes. "You have conducted unauthorized genetic experimentation on council property. This is a violation of—" "Actually," Jack interrupted, "I conducted a cultural exchange project, exactly as my request stated. I'm helping aliens understand human biology better. And now you do." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the room. "This technology," Trell said, his voice now urgent, "it must be shared with the council. All species should benefit from such a discovery." Jack smiled. "Interesting. A month ago, you said humans were too short-lived to contribute anything meaningful to galactic science. Now suddenly our work has value." Trell's purple skin darkened with emotion. "The council demands." "The council has no authority over Earth science," Jack said firmly. "I've already sent all my data home. Earth will decide how to proceed." Trell stepped closer to Jack, lowering his voice. "You don't understand what you've done, human. This changes the balance of power in the galaxy. Some species will do anything to possess this technology." "I understand perfectly," Jack replied, just as quietly. "That's why I waited to reveal it until Earth's diplomatic ship was close enough to help if needed. They arrive in 2 days." Trell stepped back, reassessing Jack with new eyes. "It seems we have underestimated humans." "Yes," Jack agreed. "You have." As the council meeting dissolved into arguments and demands, Jack and his test subjects slipped out quietly. Back in his lab, Jack received another message from Earth. "Diplomatic team arrival accelerated. Will dock tomorrow. Hold position. You've changed everything, Miller. The galaxy will never be the same." Jack looked out his small window at the stars. He had done it. Humans would no longer be the mayflies of the galaxy. They would have time. Time to build, to learn, to grow. Time to show what humanity could really do. The news spread through the Galactic Council station like wildfire. By morning, every alien knew about the human breakthrough. Some were angry, others afraid, and a few were excited. But all of them wanted the same thing: access to Jack's therapy. Jack sat in his lab, the door securely locked. Outside, a line of aliens had formed, all wanting to speak with him. He ignored them, focusing instead on preparing his data for the Earth diplomatic team. His communication screen lit up. It was Captain Laura West of the Earth ship Horizon. Dr. Miller, we're docking in 30 minutes, she said. The situation has escalated faster than we expected. Several alien governments have already contacted Earth demanding access to your discovery. What's our position? Jack asked. Earth Council wants to negotiate from strength, Laura replied. Your discovery changes everything. We're no longer the newcomers begging for a seat at the table. We have something they all want. A loud banging interrupted their conversation. Jack glanced at his security screen. Trell and 3 other Vorns stood outside his door. I need to go, Jack said. See you in 30 minutes. Jack opened the door just enough to speak through the gap. Yes, Elder Trell. The council has called an emergency session. Trell said, his voice formal but strained. Your presence is required. I'll be there after I meet with the Earth delegation, Jack replied. Trell's eyes narrowed. This is not a request. Human. The future of galactic relations is at stake. Jack thought for a moment. 1 hour. After I meet my people. Trell clearly wanted to argue, but nodded stiffly and left with his group. The Earth ship Horizon docked exactly on time. Captain West stepped off first, followed by 5 serious-looking humans in formal uniforms. Jack recognized 2 of them. Dr. Anna Lee, Earth's top geneticist, and Ambassador Tom Reed, Earth's senior diplomat. You've caused quite a stir, Dr. Miller, Ambassador Reed said with a small smile. Half the galaxy is in panic. The other half is making offers. Offers? Jack asked. Trade deals, technology exchanges, military alliances, Captain West said. Everyone wants what you've created. Dr. Lee reviewed Jack's data quickly, her eyes widening. This is remarkable work, Jack. The implications go beyond just extending life. The regenerative aspects alone could cure most human diseases. The council is waiting, Jack said. They've called an emergency session. Good, Ambassador Reed said firmly. Let's not keep them waiting. The Earth delegation entered the council chamber together. All 50 council members were present, with Trell in the center. The room fell silent as the humans took their places. Trell spoke first. This council has existed for 10,000 years. In that time, we have maintained peace through cooperation and sharing of critical technologies. The human longevity therapy is such a technology. Ambassador Reed stepped forward. Earth respects the Council's traditions. However, we cannot ignore the fact that until yesterday, many Council members viewed humans as unworthy of full participation due to our short lifespans. Murmurs filled the room. Reed continued. We are willing to share Dr. Miller's discovery under certain conditions. What conditions? Trell asked, his voice tight. First, Earth receives full membership in the Council with equal voting rights. No more second-class status. Trell looked unhappy but nodded. That is acceptable. Second, all restrictions on human participation in long-term projects are removed. Another nod from Trell. Third, Reed said, Earth maintains primary control over the therapy's development and implementation. We will share it, but we will decide how and when. This caused an uproar. Many council members shouted objections. Unacceptable. One tall alien yelled. This therapy belongs to all sentient beings. Did you share your faster-than-light technology when you developed it? Jack asked loudly. Or did you negotiate terms favorable to your species first? The alien fell silent. Ambassador Reed raised his hand. We are not being unreasonable. Earth simply wants what every other council member already has, respect and fair treatment. Trell looked around the room, seeing the division among the council. Some wanted to fight, others to compromise. Finally, he spoke. The council will recess for 6 hours to consider Earth's terms. But know this, humans, if we cannot reach agreement, there are those who will take more direct action to acquire this technology. As the council members filed out, Captain West leaned close to Jack. I think that went rather well, all things considered. Jack nodded. 6 hours to change the course of human history. no pressure. 5 years passed since the historic agreement between Earth and the Galactic Council. Much had changed. Jack stood at the window of his new lab, no longer a tiny room, but an entire floor of the Council's main science building. Outside, ships from dozens of worlds came and went. Many carried humans, now a common sight throughout the galaxy. Dr. Miller, the Regellian delegates have arrived, his assistant said from the doorway. Jack nodded. Show them in. 3 tall, thin aliens with pale blue skin entered the lab. They bowed respectfully. Welcome to the Galactic Medical Exchange, Jack said with a smile. We're happy to begin work with Rigel. The honor is ours, the lead Regellian replied. Your life extension therapy has transformed the galaxy. It was true. After tense negotiations, the Council had accepted Earth's terms. The therapy was shared, but in a careful, controlled way. Earth went from being the newest member of the galactic community to one of its most important almost overnight. The therapy worked differently for each species. For some, it extended life only slightly. For others, it worked even better than for humans. But for all, it improved health and quality of life. Jack's communicator beeped. It was Ambassador Reed. Jack, reminder about the 5-year anniversary ceremony. All council members will be there, including the Vorn, Jack asked. Reed smiled. Most of them. Some of the elders are still adjusting. After the Regellian delegation left, Jack walked through the station to the Great Council chamber. It looked different now. The seats were all the same size, including those for humans. Earth's flag hung alongside the others. The chamber was filled with representatives from all council species. At the front stood Captain West, now Admiral West, and Ambassador Reed. Jack joined them. Reed opened the ceremony. 5 years ago today, we signed the Treaty of Shared Knowledge. It marked a new beginning for all our peoples. As Reed spoke, Jack noticed Trell sitting alone at the back of the room. The Vorn elder looked older somehow, despite being physically unchanged. Jack excused himself and walked over. Elder Trell, Jack said, sitting beside him. I didn't expect to see you here. Trell was quiet for a moment. Much has changed, Dr. Miller. For the better, I hope. Trell looked at him. The Vorn have ruled this council for thousands of years. Now we must share power. It is difficult. Change always is, Jack said. You know, Trell said slowly, we Vorn believed our long lives made us wise. We thought species with short lives could not understand the universe as we did. And now? Jack asked. Now I wonder if perhaps it was the opposite. Perhaps our long lives made us afraid of change. We stopped looking for new paths because we had all the time in the world. Jack nodded. Humans rushed because we had to. We didn't have centuries to waste. Trell looked around the room, at the mixed groups of aliens and humans talking and laughing together. The young ones adapt better, he said, pointing to a group of younger Vorn working with human scientists. They see the benefits of this new galaxy we are building. And the elders? Jack asked. Trell almost smiled. We learn. Slowly, but we learn. Admiral West called Jack back to the front for his speech. As Jack stood to leave, Trell touched his arm. Dr. Miller, I have lived 739 years now. In all that time, I never imagined how much could change in just 5. Your people have taught the galaxy an important lesson. What lesson is that? Jack asked. That the value of a species is not measured in years lived, Trell said, but in what they do with the time they have. Jack smiled. That might be the wisest thing I've heard in my 39 years, Elder Trell. As Jack walked to the front of the chamber to address the gathered representatives of the galaxy, he thought about how far humans had come. From being dismissed as mayflies to helping reshape the future of all species. The humans hadn't just extended their lifespans. They had changed how the galaxy thought about time itself, and what was possible within it. And that was perhaps the greatest breakthrough of all.